To me, culture trumps everything. I've heard it said before. I'm a 100% believer. I would be in my old corporate job looking forward to hanging a 35-year plaque on the wall if it wasn't for culture. Pay was good, trajectory of career was nice, all that stuff. But culture is everything. And if you create a culture, you got to live it, breathe it, and be the example.
I'm your host, Alan Bennett, and today's guest, we have Jason. Jason is here to talk about his journey as an entrepreneur. So, Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alan.
So, first of all right, let's get an idea of what led you to entrepreneurship. I want to get to your business and what your business name is and all that, but let's start with that initial journey. And we all, every entrepreneur has to start somewhere. For me, it was mowing grass, right? I had that little taste. So tell me about your journey. Where did you get the idea that entrepreneurship might be your calling?
Uh, I mean, while I was at corporate doing IT, I had a desire to kind of do more outside of what my day to day role was, and we were publicly traded, so things are controlled to certain degrees, and so I wanted to grow and learn, and so some of it started that way. I always envisioned like the time to own a business or to start a business was before I had a family, but that's not exactly how it worked out. but but yeah, I mean, just the I guess continual learning and growth that I wanted to pursue. I was, I guess, somewhat restricted in a corporate role over things you could and couldn't do, compliance and things like that. I was blessed later in my career to, you know, go horizontally and vertically in different areas and departments and stuff. But early on in my career, I kind of got that itch, and then, through the serving the church is really where it started to take root. My business partner and I, we both served in our IT and media ministries at our respective churches here in Northwest Arkansas for many years, and we had tag teamed projects, back and forth with our churches, doing things collectively, and really began to identify, hey, the back office of a church is like a small business, managing capacity for membership when they come in on Sundays and Wednesdays or events, being able to scale the solutions, and we were able to do all of the things, which was really cool because at corporate you can do two or three disciplines and have full ownership of it. But when you're a volunteer and you do things for free, they'll give you all the things that you can possibly do. So we were able to expand skill sets and grow in a lot of ways that kind of fed back into the career path and grew us there at corporate for a while, until a time that ultimately the trigger event for launch was really a cultural shift that initiated the plan and action kind of a thing. So we put pencil to paper and really got honest with everything on planning and working through it. I was the first one that made the leap out of corporate to start the business and turn the key on the office, and that was in June of 2018. But the years ahead of that, the years leading up to that, I should say, were the ones that, looking back, the Lord was preparing me through all the experiences I had. At corporate, I'd gone a lot of different places around the country for specialized training in different disciplines and technologies, and was able to grow a skill set and then apply, some of that at the church, and then kind of expand the skill set at church horizontally, and then feed that back into the corporate world to the different departments, and eventually was an architect, and I ran a couple of departments at corporate when I sunset my career and launched IntegraTech.
So let's go back. Your IT training, um, like a college degree, or it was a self-taught? How does that, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I know it's people say give it the college try. I'm not the guy to say that. I was there a year maybe and bailed. It wasn't for me. I graduated in Northwest Arkansas in Springdale in '97. Pursued, I wanted to be a computer systems engineer at the university, but when I get there doing the classes and I'm doing HTML blank tags and like things to me that were just archaic, and I looked at the curriculum and I'm like, this stuff's printed in a book. Technology moves so fast.
Mm.
I didn't feel like I was keeping up with what I wanted to be doing. So I pressed into just starting out literally in the basement, slinging tapes, doing backups, getting a grunt job in tech that I could get started with. and they had computer-based training classes and things for us. So I really absorbed a lot of that and just, paid my dues and tried to climb the ladder. And so it worked out where I was recognized for efforts and aptitude. My boss would say attitude and aptitude is everything, right? So
Mm.
that was something that I really, grabbed onto and began to apply myself in any way possible to learn and continue to grow what type of skills, have a variety of things I've worked on through my career with projects and stuff, but it all really started as a tape slinger in the basement and then moved into a little bit of a management role in operations and was exposed through some projects there to really what fundamentally ran the company from a technology footprint as far as all the applications and workflows and automation that happened. And we replaced the big project that kind of was a pivot point for my career was I was tasked with automating or replacing the automation engine that does a lot of our batch processing and things for all the applications and systems. So we were moving away from an IBM product into a product from a company called Redwood, who's out of Amsterdam. And so we had a resource come on site. I worked very closely with him and then learned through that. I interacted with almost every group in IT because they all had, whether it was applications for trucking, logistics management, or production planning, all these different things. And I got to poking a head in the window of all these, facets of the business and tie that back together with the technology. So that was really, very valuable to my experience at corporate. And then I launched into a sysadmin role where I started on the storage capacity planning and then moved into server and what we called kind of big iron enterprise systems management from there. And then along that whole journey between then and sunset in my career was, I was a solutions architect for a while. I had worked on some x86 and VMware, a little bit of network. I earned my, network engineers, so I earned my honorary network engineering badge through a project when we absorbed a company we had bought over the internet, and we pulled 580 terabytes and close to 1,000 systems over the internet, from their data centers to ours, things like that. But just the pathway that I took, I said I've hired college degree guys. I've got no issue with college degree people. It's great. It speaks a lot. It's more fortitude than I had to stick it out. I just look at technology that it moves so fast that to keep up with it truly, I want to know about what somebody's home lab looks like. I want to know what they're tinkering on in their basement. And that to me, a passion that somebody has to pursue it, not necessarily just for a degree or for this, milestone moment, but it's a pursuit of knowledge all the time, of continuously improving skill set because things change and move always. And that's kind of how I approached it through my career. And I had certified training and, did things that were specific disciplines through my career with different technologies with our vendors, but never pursued a diploma per se.
So let's unpack a lot of that right there. That I heard a lot in there, and what it sounds like as you were going through life, your career, your early stages of your career, you're picking up on some needs that you're identifying that are out there, and you're constantly educating yourself, and you're putting that thirst for knowledge, you were utilizing that to kind of gain more information. And it sounds like you were kind of getting a broad umbrella over this industry as to what it all entails. Did I get that assessment okay? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, really, from the time I was born, my dad would always say, "Go to bed smarter than you woke up." That's a mission every day, right? I mean,
Mm.
so you can learn in any situation, and I believe that there's no interaction between two humans or anything that happens that's a neutral interaction. You can walk away with a positive or a negative, but I mean, really, not much to me is a neutral thing. So I try to take every opportunity I could to learn and grow. When I was a young gun on the team, and back then we carried pagers, which is kind of funny now, but
You're dating yourself now.
I know, right? But yeah, so I remember when I joined the team, I was single, didn't have a family, but I was with family guys, and so I mean, I knew that I sat on an aisle that had over 120 something years of Fortune 100 IT experience, right?
Mm.
And so that's my college, right? That's
Yeah.
me getting able to, poke my head in the pod and ask a question or have somebody look over my shoulder. So, to build credit in what they call the emotional bank account, I took it upon myself to carry the pager whenever I could. That would be, and it would put me in a position where I'm doing a favor for a guy on the aisle, and then maybe they would owe me a favor for something or show me something, right? So if somebody's got soccer practice, I'll take a pager for them. And so I began, and plus it's a twofold deal. I win the relationship piece for this person that I've just met or I'm new to the team with. But it's also, I get that experience of the 2 a.m. call when something gets broke and I can take a look at it firsthand. And then I own the problem. I can quarterback it. I may not be able to solve it immediately, obviously being brand new, but I could run it through the traps, get it solved, and then after action, kind of gather notes. And then I built a library of notes that through the positions I had at corporate, when I left, when I was in the basement and I left my basement job, I had like a 3.5-inch 3-ring binder of all of the things that I had that were essentially, it's a wiki. Back then it was a physical wiki almost of what was going on in the department, the different things that got you. And whenever I left, there was people fighting over that book that I was going to leave behind because I no longer had those responsibilities. And so now all that's digital, but I mean, I've got notes that go back for years on problems. And so, but it's experience. I've been in IT I've played with it since I was 14. 15 years old, when it started to emerge into a desktop form for most of the families and stuff in your house. I'll never forget, my dad broke the bank buying our first computer, and I just, and I broke it within 2 months of having it because I wanted to upgrade it. And then that was a thing, right? So, and that was kind of the spark in my mind that led me into IT period, was because, I wanted to play a Tom Clancy game and we had to have a 16-bit sound card, and I popped this thing open. Oh yeah. And so I put this big old PCI card in there and messed it up. It wouldn't run. We had to take and get it fixed. We get it back, and the guy had a bill for 2 hours for like $250. And this is in the 90s. And I'm like, I want that dude's job. Right. So, so that's kind of where I really initially started leaning. And I mean, I was very interested in it to begin with, but when I found that part of it, I'm like, hey, this is, so I was at corporate, doing whatever I could do for a job, and then gained some recognition and was able to have people around me that believed in me, and they would empower me with, either their time or some special training or, project assignments and things that grew me, and put me in a position that, really ultimately led to, when I sunset my career, I had a couple of departments of responsibility, had some budgetary responsibility. The management part was never my end game. I always want to be technical. But the fact of the matter at corporate was the technical ladder stopped so high. And so I kind of moved into a technical management role where I still maintained some technical responsibilities and ran a couple of departments. And then that was really when things began to shift. And I had been at corporate and been through the merry-go-round of reorgs a few times. But the last one that happened was just kind of like, okay, this is different. And then it kind of put me on a pathway of what else was out there. And we made the step of faith in 2017 on paper, but 2018 turned the key on an office. So,
yes. So there was a couple of things early on that you were talking about that I want to focus in on. You had talked about when you were carrying the pager and building that book. And the two things I took from that was you were developing trust with your coworkers where they could depend on you, and you built this database or this binder that had all the information, and you're building competency, right? So
sure.
let's talk a little bit about as your business has grown, those were two things that you were doing early on. And when it comes to trust and competency now as a business owner, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. I would say, I believe it's Covey, the whole speed of trust, right? I've been through a lot of different leadership training classes. And back then when I was super techie, I would call them all fluff. Now I see the value of all of the interpersonal and people skill stuff that they put us through. But yeah, I mean, you can have, and I tell people this, I've seen prime examples of this in my career where you are an ace technician. You can fix any problem possible. But if nobody trusts you to touch a keyboard, you're useless. Or if you can't work with anybody, you're an individual contributor at best. And you can bang out a lot of really good code or do a lot of things individually, but really relationship is everything. And the latter years of my career was really when that began to come out. when leadership started to pull me aside and say, I need 10 Jasons, or I need to go do this and that. And they would put me in very, very uncomfortable situations for a guy who only lacked a red stapler from being like a Milton Wadhams, like legit. I was that guy for a long time. And so they would take me and put me in these HR, you know, little meetings and team buildings and all these things that just didn't feel comfortable to me. But ultimately, you know, you're set there enough and you grow when you're not comfortable. That's absolute fact, right? But in our world today with IntegraTech, I mean, that's absolutely the business name is integrity and technology. We want to build trust with our clients. And it's funny because we launched in 2018 and like nobody knew who we were, but we'd been doing IT for 30 something years collectively at the enterprise level, me and my business partner, when we launched the business. Now we've got 53 years under the hood with IntegraTech as we've built the team and grown. But trust is, it's, you know, you've got to build that trust quickly, or again, with our clients, when we're blessed for them to refer us to another customer, we ride the trust of that relationship too, which helps in that. So trust is huge. In our world, everything is privacy, it's sensitive, it's security, it's, you know, protection of all of these things. And so you have to have a relationship that, you know, your customer trusts you implicitly with all of the things. And, you know, with that, you can't break that trust. I mean, you're going to, and the relationship aspect that you build with these people, because nobody's perfect. Things happen, mistakes happen.
Yeah.
In the technology world, you have users in various environments and situations, and, you know, clicks and, you know, different things can happen that can change your security footprint, or, you know, things at certain times. So it kind of gets to where you can put a certain amount of controls in, but when things do happen, whether they're good or bad, relationship wise, is how you kind of work through all those things with your clients. And that's what we've kind of discovered. So we work on a contract basis, basically as an outsourced entity for our customers. For most of them, we're a full lock, stock, and barrel setup.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. I want to bite on something that you said in there, and that was when you were blessed where one client would refer you to another.
Mhm.
That's transfer of trust.
Mhm.
Let's talk about how that works. Let's talk about transfer of trust, because service businesses is all about referrals, and that is the transfer of trust. So give a little bit of insight. Do y'all have a team talk about how to do this? Is there a structure around how to do that better? How does that work for you and your organization?
So, as an organization, we're beginning to flesh out a structure, you know, and delegation. That's kind of the cycle we're in right now. Is we hired our 10th guy like a month ago, thereabouts. But, you know, for several years, you know, growing the business and getting it started has just been organic, or, you know, I tell people all the time, it's testimony, you know, the Lord's work in my life that we're even still here today, because like I'm a super tech. Are you familiar with the E-Myth Revisited?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So like
Michael
when we
Gerber.
launched, yeah, exactly. So like that's a book that, you know, and I did the audiobook for it, but like that dude that's like the ultimate technician, that was me. Like I was the guy that you could put any problem in front of me and I
You were
could probably
baking the
fix
pies.
it. Yeah, like yeah, exactly. Like I was great. And then I'm like, oh, I got this, man. And but understanding the processes of business was totally out of my grasp, right? I mean, we had
Mhm.
some processes at corporate, but like we had total departments that did things. I had no idea that, you know, I was so sheltered in these things, right, in my
Yeah.
corporate career. I mean, if I wanted to go buy something as IntegraTech, I had to go sign a bunch of paperwork and get set up as a vendor. I mean, there's a department for that. I just called Catherine, and, you know, in this world
Yeah.
that I'm in now, it's like I really look at it like way underappreciated her back then, you know, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, on the, you know, the writing, the trust, and the referral piece, I mean, in our world, it's cyclical, it's contract, it's annual. You know, you're building relationships and working with people. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to throw a billboard up on the highway and then somebody call and say, hey, here's all my passwords, here's all my data. You know, like I just don't see that happening. It's really going to be the high percentage of close that we get for close rates for new clientele and things like that is somebody that says, hey, this dude has been taking care of me for 5 years. I feel like they take, you know, they genuinely care about my company, about learning what we do. and then helping us execute beyond just break fix support, and really partnering with the business, which is, we stress that partnership because we want to do, for us to be the most valuable for you, we have to stretch into your organization as far out as the edge of where you're growing to, right? Not just the guy behind the curtain, keeping things running. It's, if you want to use us best, pull us in a room with your vendors that you're looking at vetting for software choices and different things. We can take that experience we have, understanding what we know about your business, and the more we learn and grow with you, the more that we can apply value to that and help you make those decisions that steer the ship for you into growth or acquisition. I mean, corporate, we acquired so many companies, and we've been through a lot of mergers and acquisitions, a few divestitures and things. But the technology part is one part of the puzzle. I'll tell people all the time, it's a three-legged stool. It's people, process, and technology. So, like, if all I'm selling is gadgets and widgets and blinky lights, then I'm one-legged stool. That ain't gonna work. So, for us, we want to come in and partner. We've got, and I think of like some of these CEOs or chiefs that I've got that are customers of mine. We're like brothers. I mean, I love them. Give them hugs. When we talk to each other, it's like they come by and we have good long visits about things that involve family, and a lot of things outside of just business stuff. I've heard it said, nobody knows how much you know until they know how much you care,
Yeah.
or cares how much you know, right? Until they know how much you care. So that's, a statement that kind of rings with me too, is I genuinely want to invest in with our companies to understand what their drivers are, what their values are. We've had customers that have come on board that have not aligned with us, as far as culture. And that's a hard one, right? You can't serve everybody you like. You're not going to like everybody you serve necessarily, but when we're most successful with our partnerships with companies, it's when we are invited in and they give us, all access essentially. And it's a high trust thing, right? I mean, to be able to just open it up. And we had a company that we onboarded with, it was a referral. Within the first 2 weeks, they dumped their Excel spreadsheet of all of their IT spend and said, here, we used to have an in-house guy doing IT. Basically this guy who referred you said, you're the guy. This is all of our stuff, and they pulled the curtain back. I looked at it, and we've been able to offset over 35% of our monthly fee with them just by saving money, like going through and cutting out overlap or shifting platforms to something that's better suited, or maybe not overkill, or, those kind of things. But it's hard to work through a keyhole, and that's that when you don't trust somebody, you got the door locked, I'm working through a keyhole. Right. And so that kind of makes it, a more difficult situation. But we really, we want to build those relationships with our clients where they can talk to us about whatever it is that's on their mind, or they got to I have a guy's like, hey, I got another crazy idea. Let's run this down and see what happens. Right. Where does this go? Is it something you can help with, or somebody that can help me with this kind of a thing? And I'm not the end all be all answer for any of it. The more I am in this thing, the more I realize that it's the people I know, or maybe some of the experiences I've had, but I'm just another, string in the fabric of it all, really. If I look at it that way, we're all tied together in it. So.
Yeah. So one of the things I heard in there was your connection with your clients, right? And I heard a little bit about compassion in there as well. So when you're building a team, and let's talk about internal team versus external team. So internal, the people within your organization that you work with, and then those that are outside of the organization, clients, customers, whatever language you use to call them. When you try to bridge all of those together, how does that, from an internal standpoint, how do you have a conversation with your team on the non-technical side of how they work with clients? Meaning, how do they connect with them? How does that work?
Yeah, it's character. I don't know that it's not, to me, culture trumps everything. I've heard it said before. I'm a 100% believer. I would be in my old corporate job looking forward to hanging a 35-year plaque on the wall if it wasn't for culture. Um, I mean, pay was good, trajectory of career was nice, all that stuff. But culture is everything. And if you create a culture, you got to live it, breathe it, and be the example. And so when I am interacting with my clients, or when, customers stop in, or clients, or whoever, whether it's top dog at customer X, or, a guy that's 5 rungs down on the ladder, doesn't matter. Everybody, we're there to serve all of them. right? And so we're a Christian organization. We want to live those disciplines, and that culture starts with me and Alan, right? In our logo for IntegraTech, if you look, there's 2 lowercase i's for the integrity aspect of it when we chop it
Mm,
off, right? Those lowercase i's is Alan and me. We book in the integrity of this thing, and we got to live it, breathe it, and basically walk the walk, so everybody else can see that and then replicate that. Hiring people, like, talk about all the challenges of business. People is probably one of the hardest parts of it, is getting the right people who come in and buy into the culture and want to commit, to something that's bigger than themselves. And that's what our goal is, right? We want to make
mm,
an impact in the business community, and all of the community at large, really, when it's all said and done, but do it in a way that honors the Lord with the services we provide. Because I wasn't meant to be a preacher. I'm a super geek, and so but that's the superpower He gave me. And so, like, I can, my old CTO would be like, it's attitude aptitude. I told you that in the intro stuff, but, like, given some time with any system, I think we can engineer a solution or find a problem just about with anything. It's just from our experience and things we've been blessed with. But the people you surround yourselves with have got to buy into this whole thing of how you care for the client, how you genuinely engage in a meaningful manner. It's non-dismissive, right? You've got to make sure that you listen. You got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. It's 80-20, right? So when you're engaging with the client, be observing, be
yeah,
listening, and shut your pie hole a lot of times, right? Like, listen to what's happening. They don't call you to say, I'm having a great day. They
yeah.
they call you when they're in times of stress or have problems. So, be empathetic, sit there and let them pour into you and just dump it all out, and be
Mm,
gracious about it, and try to do the best you can to walk them through the problem they have. Sometimes they make a mountain out of a molehill, and sometimes they got a molehill, but they should be staring at a mountain, and they
mm,
don't realize what kind of a problem they've got. You've got to educate them about it and build. It's a trust thing. Like, when you take a call from somebody, they're trusting you inherently to call because they've been told by their boss you're the guy that fixes things. But
right.
a lot of people don't have that belief. They may be told that, but they don't believe it until they get you on the phone and you can start walking them through things. And I tell our techs, I'm like, you got to be able to navigate the unknown. Like, how, and that's a question I have kind of in interviews, is like, how do you handle solving a problem that you don't even know the answer to, or can't even fully flesh out because you've got to do these qualifying questions and all the other stuff on the call? How do you handle that stuff
Mm,
personally? Do you get personally frazzled? Because that's just going to amplify the situation with your customer. Um, can you stay cool, calm, and collected and do some research while you're talking them through and discovering what this problem is? Um, we don't want to create this sky is falling scenario, and those kind of things, right? And I think it's, experience, like, the experience a customer has with us at the top level, at the customer level, when they trust us, their culture down through their organization is likewise going to do the same. They're going to hear what their leadership says and mimic and understand and believe the things that they're told. Um, and so we've been able to do that with quite a few companies, and everybody's important. Not just the C-suite, the guys that are out doing, you know whatever it is. I mean, we've got medical, financial, we got a lot of different industries that we serve. um, but from the bottom to the top, we've got to serve them all well, and everybody
yeah.
matters. So,
Yes, let's talk about the future. When you look at, the old saying is what got you here won't get you there, right? So what is in your world, what does that look like? How do you look at innovation?
um, being a super geek, I tell you, like, I'm kind of a tech junkie. Like, I look at stuff all the time. And back to the whole question about what your home lab looked like. I had a home lab until I got married, and then that bedroom went away, and the daughter moved in. And then since then, everything's gone kind of virtual. But my office is kind of that too. My church was my lab for a long time. Just, innovation is something that probably is one of my key roles for the company. Is like, that's where I'm best used. Back to that delegation aspect of, like, roles and hats and responsibilities. Um, I'm out looking at technologies, looking and analyzing where we sit in today with the software we've chosen for different vendors and different solutions. What's that package look like? What's new? What's coming? What are we missing? What are gaps I can address? How can I, combine solutions, or, reduce overlap, different things like that. Always trying to keep cost burden in mind for client, for services, and then as far as like ceiling of solution and how far we can scale with things, stuff like that. We launched, so IntegraTech is the first business we launched, me and Alan. Well, then right after we launched, within a year, WeWork's knocking on the East Coast doing their thing. And I was like, man, shared office is coming. Like, we got to find a solution, right? So we started innovating and figuring out, what does a super smart, fully automated and integrated office look like from an enterprise perspective, and then kind of what's out there. So we just last year, the building we were in here in Northwest Arkansas, we opened a co-working location that's attached to our technology business.
Hmm.
And so we call it Smart Spaces. It's like a platform of, smart office solutions for all the things, fully integrated, automated, all the stuff for co-work. So really, I mean, we look at, like, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all the other books and kind of things, is like
Mm-hmm.
diversifying what we do, not just sticking with what IntegraTech is. As we grow and delegate, succession plan, things like that with that business, technology is a major success factor in just about anything you can name for business. So how can we take what we do there that we do well, and push that into different industries to set ourselves apart? When we launched into the co-working, I caught a lot of flack for being the guy that really only focused on the technology part, and co-working is about the people and the community and space and all that. And I mean, it absolutely is. But how do you do any of that well if you're fighting your printer problems all the time or can't get connected to the internet? So, my saying is like, remove that technological barrier, tackle the technology and free the people, kind of a thing, is the way we run it around here. So we look at future for us in business being scaling maybe into a couple different verticals, and we're looking at federal government contracts on the IntegraTech side, looking at diversifying some of the offerings there, doing, full blown ISP work for micro communities. Now that in society today, we've got apartment complexes and you've got retail on bottom, and everything's, hyper converged in a bubble where you live, work, and play. We've got network solutions that can essentially serve that entire community, at a scale that, we can handle, because we come from, tens and 20,000s of users or whatever that we're used to supporting and managing. And then, the co-work piece is one. And then, beyond kind of the business part of it, when we began this journey, the Lord put it on my heart to do a maker ministry. I don't even know if people really know what that is. It's kind of a term I've made up almost, I guess, but I'm super into 3D printing, laser cutting. I mean, like, I'm just, years ago, my dad was a tradesman. I started in the trades and got, off on this technical tangent, but where machines and technology meet is really like, that's where I spark heavy. And so I'm looking at, what does the Lord have in my future for a ministry of teaching youth, which is where I served in my church for a long time, and bringing them in to a workshop experience, teaching them practical skills,
Yeah.
and giving them, because, a lot of the kids in our community don't have dads and stuff. So it's like, how do we bring them into the ministry and do, boot camp kind of workshop stuff, and teach them practical skills that can lean towards job placement for them. At the end of the day, XYZ's XYZ, G code's G code. You give me $1 million machine or you give me $1,000 machine, it's going to run off a lot of the same stuff. So some of those things, I'd love to figure out in the next chapter for me, beyond where I'm at now in the day to day, where I'm still involved here, but it frees up enough of my time to move into that ministry aspect of it. That's kind of what I'm hoping to do, 5, 10, 15, whenever that is, whenever that comes.
Yeah. So when you bring, let's say you were to hire me to come in, and I fit your organization. I'm a new hire.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you want to expand outside of your work, carry that to the youth as part of your ministry. Would you communicate that with me when you bring in your employees? Do you share that with them? Do you want your employees to have that same collaboration and compassion for serving like that?
It's not a core requirement, but I definitely don't shy away from it. Like, everybody we hire knows we're a Christian-based business. They know
Okay.
how we serve, the principles, and why we serve what we do. They know that, I'm deeply involved with the church and that I've served in youth and done things. And I mean, my old youth pastor was actually in the building this week working on some stuff. We, still,
Mhm.
have him come in and do things. And so there's a connection that I live pretty transparently with a lot of that stuff. And I tell people all the time, like, don't hesitate to ask me questions about anything. Like, I mean, this is a small business first and foremost. Even when I was at corporate, it was open door policy. You got something, if it's important to you, it's important to me. Let's talk about it. But I definitely try to live out that kind of stuff so people can see these are plans. And plus, it's maybe some way somebody can connect me to something. For the longest time, I had this vision that God was going to launch IntegraTech so high that it would just fund this other thing I had an idea for and move on. But the more I look at it and the more I struggle, like how business works and all that, we talked about all that, super technician, and couldn't even spell cash flow back in the day. But like, but where I'm at now, I've kind of come to this realization that God's so much bigger than this, that there's, I can just start talking about it and have conversations about things, and then people can be connected that can kind of bring this thing together. It's not just a me thing. Um, but I've got ideas on how it works, and I've been very interested in maker spaces and things like that.
Mm.
But I'd love to see a ministry focused kind of maker space that can serve churches in the community. But yeah,
Mm.
that's all stuff that one of my guys that's on board now that we brought on a couple of years ago, like he wants to be involved. He's like me. He's like, he's very innovative, and he digs the technical, like the machine type stuff. And so he actually ran 3D print lab for a while at college here locally. And so he's super into all that stuff, and he wants to be a part of this whole maker ministry future thing too, is kind of where he sees it. So
Mm.
it's like these, but I'm just a cog in a wheel. I just want to figure out what that next step looks like when the time is right. I don't want to be too premature with it. Business, getting everything where it needs to be. My business partner does a lot of the operations and finances and things like that. I'm more project and technical, and I
Mm.
actually somehow landed in sales. I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me at all, but I just kind of got thrust out there because I was the first guy that turned a key, and I know the whole story since we started, right? So it's
Yeah.
like here, I had
Right.
I had people come in and ask me questions or want to talk to the guy, and I'm the guy usually they put in front of everybody to talk
Yeah.
to this big hairy bearded dude. But I'm kind of used
Somebody's
to it
got
at
to
this
fall on
point.
the sword.
I know, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm kind of used to it at this point. I was, very timid for a while. Like, they talk about when you speak, having like people have their ticks or they've got to have this comfort thing. Like for me, it was an expo marker because
Mm.
usually when I'm talking, I'm speaking about technical topics. And if I'm holding an expo marker, I felt more comfortable
Uh,
because I could draw, like I can draw pictures, and I can
mm.
it's almost like a distraction away from me when I'm pointing at this big diagram when I'm drawing, but it helps the words come out and I don't seize up as much. I used to have a lot of like stage fright almost, but I've gotten a lot better at these kind of things, even where this is
Yeah.
just kind of more of a norm for me now. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's, really that one word that I would say is everything to me in business and my corporate, it's just culture. Like
Hmm.
we were so blessed to have a microculture in our corporate world for so long that weathered so many cycles of change. But then the last one that happened, it kind of shelled out on us. And then when that umbrella broke loose, it really, it opened my eyes to things where I have this total job security and all these other things that I had. I realized, no, you don't. And I'm blessed with a wife I come home to, and I tell her I've got this crazy idea about starting a business, and she's like, yeah, great. Told her that the Lord's leading me down this path. She's like, awesome. We prayed about it a lot. And I remember the day I walked home and told her that I put my notice in. She didn't bat an eye at it. She fully expected it. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it's not been easy at all. This whole journey's been difficult, but it's been a big faith builder. And it's been something that has grown me tremendously in my walk. And so
Mm.
I'm very appreciative for everything that's come along, though it's been a very humbling journey.
Yeah.
But it's also something that, it's been wonderful for the relationships of people I've met, the opportunities I've had, things that never would have happened if I would have stayed, riding in a cubicle or in a corner office.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's funny how, all the entrepreneurs that I talk to, they have their own story of boot to rear, what got them,
mhm.
moving in that direction. And, the good Lord has a very subtle way of putting boot to rear. If you're not moving in the right direction, it's
Yeah.
subtle, but it's there.
Yeah, I remember, just my thing as the exit plan is like when it was like I expected just a date to light bulb or dart on a calendar kind of a thing. And I just come to a realization that's like, you just spoke to me like, I'm here waiting on you. Like, this is a you
Yeah.
thing. Where's your trust?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I put 6 weeks in to turn over my 2 departments, turned everything over, and I walked out with a piece again, like they say, passes all understanding. It made no sense whatsoever. I walked out of a near 15-year career, and CTO and I had a great relationship and on a good trajectory, but I just what made me good at what made me excel through the corporate career, what I did was my passion and my love for everything, and I had just lost it. I just kind of looked around and it wasn't the same, and so I put that passion into this journey
Mm.
that I'm on now, and it's so nice to be able to, you know, what is that? What do they say? It's like a stop it, do it, change it kind of a thing. Like if you
Hmm.
see something, and so now we have that control. It's like, hey, Alan, this isn't working. We need to do something or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's freedom in that, but then there's still, small businessing is hard. Like I tell people, businessing is the hardest thing I've ever done. Um, it's technical stuff comes naturally to me, but managing the business side is hard. And then the the whole we're getting at a point of predictability now where forever we just kind of flapped our arms and kept things going best we could, but we're getting in a mode where systems and processes and people and delegation and all of that is starting to fall into place.
Mm.
We've been blessed with some good people is so important, the right people in the right positions.
Yeah.
So that's been a big blessing lately. So
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you being able to take time to be on the podcast.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for the invite. It was,
Yeah.
like I say, it's not something I normally do, but I mean, this is good for us. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of tell the story we have. And I don't know if there's anybody out there that ever hears it or wants to reach out direct. And I mean, I'm
Yeah.
pretty
So
easy to
how
find.
would they get in
So,
touch with you if they wanted to reach out to you?
LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. I'm not a big social media guy, but LinkedIn's probably where I exist more than anything, for checking messages and whatever. And then, like, I mean, I don't know if I can give you my website too. They can drop a note on our website. And then if they're in Northwest Arkansas, they can come down and see us. I'll buy them a coffee. So
Yeah. 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 So the name of your company, if they're going to the website, what's the web address?
it's IntegraTech.io. So it's integrity and technology is where that comes from, that name. So
Integrity.
Integra with an I and then tech.io. Yeah.
.io.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and we will talk soon.